Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Fleet Geeks podcast. I'm here to ask another disciplinary type question similar to the one last week. Last week we was focused on mobile phone use. Today it's should I sack my driver who deliberately removed his tachograph card? Great question. So what do you think, those of you amongst you? It'd be an interesting one to put into Facebook and see what the comments are. And no doubt you get plenty of people who go straight to sack them on the spot, get rid of them, can't do that, it's my operator's license, blah, blah, etc. However, I'm here, hopefully as the voice of reason, to make sure that we follow due process and due protocol. So this is pretty serious, okay? Arguably more severe than the mobile phone use. Who knows? It really depends on what your standing is. But deliberately removing a tacho card during a shift isn't just a breach of policy, it's potential fraud. And under the law, something that the traffic commissioner would really treat as a real red flag against the driver and your operator license. So again, let's break it down really clearly so we properly understand. Removing a card while driving means the tacho isn't recorded, and that's classed as tampering or falsifying records. It's considered a deliberate attempt to conceal driving activity, and the DVSA, if found that, would take it extremely seriously and properly investigate you as the operator. If, when the DVSA audits your data and finds missing mileage, that would then potentially trigger an operator license investigation and potentially question your repute as a transport manager and as an operator. So despite being a minor technical infringement, it's potentially deliberate deception and therefore could escalate quite rapidly. So the impact really is by removing a card, it destroys the traceability and you will lose evidence of rest, working time, driving time, compliance. And it then basically breaks down your whole compliance system and puts it at risk, which will then damage professional standing if you've not dealt with it properly and firmly. So again, similar to the mobile phone incident we spoke about last week, doing nothing's not an option. Okay, so we do need to follow up, but we need to follow up in an intelligent and pragmatic way. So if the removal is deliberate and intentional, then potentially dismissal is justified and potentially necessary to ensure that you have properly protected your operator license and reputation for running a compliant operation. However, the key is to follow a proper process. In this case, you may think about potentially suspending immediately pending an investigation. So suspension of a driver whilst this happened means that they can't interfere with the investigation process. And the other thing that's really, really important to note with a suspension is that it's without prejudice. Okay, so what that means is, you need to make sure that a suspension is neutral, it's documented, and it's kept as short as is reasonably possible to allow you to properly investigate the process. Okay, so where am I? Okay, back to the suspension. Okay, so at that point, we then need to gather as much evidence as possible. For example, printouts, CCTV, vehicle downloads, and get yourself a driver's statement as well. As part of that investigation process, you do need to make sure that you follow all of the guidance that I'm going to give you shortly around carrying out an investigation and hold a proper, fair, well-documented disciplinary hearing. If it's proven that it's been deliberately done and that the driver can't defend their actions, that they can't claim that it's a lack of training or anything like that, then potentially gross misconduct and dismissal is a route to go. But again, similar to the mobile phone use, have you properly documented a policy? Have the drivers properly signed for it? Have you made it absolutely clear that this activity is gross misconduct, dismissal if and when it occurs? And if there's any shortfall in any of that process, you need to make sure you take the learnings forward with you.
Hi, I'm Shani from Flagship Partners. We're proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast, your go-to source for all things fleet management. If you're looking for expert advice or high-quality training for your fleet business, make Flagship Partners your first choice. We're also thrilled to announce the launch of our Fleet Academy, designed to support and develop future fleet leaders through expert-led and career-focused training. Our offering includes fully accredited courses such as the Transport Manager CPC training, CPC refresher courses, OLAC training, plus ongoing mentoring, support and professional development beyond the qualification. Our vision is simple: to develop elite fleet professionals who drive excellence across the industry. Let's shape the future of our fleet management together.
As well as if you're not 100% sure it's deliberate. So for example, if there's any chance that this incident was accidental, so card dislodged, accidental swap truck, misunderstanding of the overall procedure, you still need to go down a formal route, but you might consider a final written warning and retraining instead of dismissal in this instance, and make sure that you properly document that process. Okay, so how do we make sure that we do a fair and thorough investigation and disciplinary process? My first recommendation is to remove the driver from their operational duties to ensure that it protects evidence, reduces risks, but making sure that the clear suspension is not any sign of guilt, but is actually a neutral process. Secure the vehicle and make sure that we preserve all of the evidence around CCTV, telematics, tachograph data, downloaded files, etc. Don't let the vehicle be driven until we've made sure that we've followed the process. Take copies of the tachograph downloads, driver card history, motion files and vehicle unit details, and make sure that we store all of this securely and preserve any other evidence like CCTV logs, signing in and out, fuel receipts, delivery paperwork, job sheets, etc. Phone records if necessary. We need to make sure that we've got all of the details we need. We need to make sure that if we have suspended, we need to give the driver a suspension notification letter to ensure that that states why they're suspended and making sure that it stays factual. And then once we've logged everything, we need to do the fact finding. So download and analyze. We need to collect the witness statements. We need to gather all documentary evidence and speak to the driver as necessary. This all forms part of the formal investigation. At that point, we then invite to a disciplinary hearing where we need to give at least 48 hours notice, and we need to attach all of the key evidence that we're going to use as part of that disciplinary meeting. Okay, so all of the evidence that we're going to use that we've followed up as part of the investigation is going to be shared, and then we need to explain all the possible outcomes up to and including dismissal for gross misconduct. Okay, if your letter inviting your driver to the disciplinary doesn't state that it could be up to dismissal for gross misconduct, again, you could be found to not be following the correct process. You need to make sure you hold the hearing appropriately and fairly and present all of the evidence and allow the driver and potentially their rep an opportunity to respond, and consider drivers' explanations. So, for example, genuine mistakes, deliberate tampering from other people, anything like that, potentially making a huge mistake. And I would also take into account their attitude towards the disciplinary process as well. Make sure that you adjourn to make a final decision. And if more evidence is needed, it comes to light that you need more evidence, you need to adjourn during the disciplinary hearing and carry out a further investigation. With a decision, let me just take a swig of coffee. We need to make a reasoned decision and issue a written outcome. If we're dismissing somebody, then we need to make sure we're clear on what notice period we're offering and making sure that any due holiday contractual obligations are met as well. And following this incident, it may be worth considering what is your policy, what is your process internally around notifying the traffic commissioner. But you definitely need to keep on file all records of this situation and make sure that you then take it into account for any future policy review and training. You may find that your policy needs some review. It might need tightening up. It might need, off the back of this, the learning might mean that you need to make sure that you amend it and then reissue it to all the drivers, run refresher training and make sure that we update any documentation that's necessary off the back of that, and make sure we clearly communicate it internally and reinforce the standards around protecting our culture from a safety perspective and protecting our license. Cool. I hope that's been really useful. I know it's a short, sharp hit again, but hopefully I've gone through the process effectively. Should I sack my driver who deliberately removed his tachograph card? Well, the answer is, again, it depends. Doing nothing isn't an option, but you do need to appropriately follow up. I hope this has been a useful and interesting podcast. Let me know what you think. Drop comments, let me know, and hopefully see you on a future one. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.